Well, here we go. It's the first day of December 2021, and this is my Good Life Meditation. My name's Kurt Bell. The Good Life Meditation is something that I do every day to remind myself of my objectives and principles that I use to keep me on track in life, to live the life that I want to live. These objectives and principles are detailed in my book, Going Alone, right there. You can get a copy of that on Amazon. It's also available at my website, goingalone.org. If you buy it from the website, you'll get a signed copy. Here we go. So first, let's talk about the 7 objectives. These are the things that I'm striving to be and do in the course of my life. First is the objective to be always ready to die, to have my finances, my family, and my work, my life's work in order, so that if I keel over today, haven't left things unsorted, or I've left it, or they're as less sorted as I possibly could, because life's a dynamic thing, so you can't always have it just so, but as much as possible. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of time, to not waste my time during the course of the day, but to do the best that I can to make good use of the moments that I have. Number 3 is the development and maintenance of good and sound life principles, to develop objectives and principles that are helpful in furthering my life's goals, which is basically to be a virtuous human being. And these principles, even if they may be helpful in facilitating virtue, they still have to be sound. That sound being that they have to be able to withstand the test of reason and basically be true, not just wishful thinking. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions throughout the day, just to react well to the circumstances of life. A tricky one, like right now, I'm about to start a new job tomorrow, and I'm very anxious about it. And one of the things I need to do today is to cultivate good emotional reactions. Even though I may be flustered under the surface, I can work to carry myself well above, be in control. Next is the performance of good actions, just to do good things throughout the day. After that is to recognize true limits and true opportunity, what I can and cannot possibly do. And the last one is to just do one thing slowly, not to rush my life. Those are my 7 objectives. Now let's do the 27 principles. The first of these is the principle of war, to be always at war with everything that I propose and hold as true, and anything that anyone else does the same. 2 is the principle of reason, and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt. Reason is the tool that I use in the pursuit of that war against propositions of truth. The third principle is the principle of the homunculus, the concept of a little man or woman that lives inside my head, that is my consciousness, that will die with me when I die. Appears to be no escape. Next is the Anchorhold. The Anchorhold is a fictitious little rock that sticks out of the ocean, where we exist and where we suffer our lives and where we enjoy the joys of our lives, a place from which we cannot escape, a place where we will bear all of the aforementioned goods, ups and downs of life, and from whence we will die. Gloomy, huh? Life is challenging. The next is the home of good and evil, simply a reminder that concepts of good and evil are human artifacts. Nature does not seem to have any good or bad, other than the biology's, with a capital B, seeming mandate to survive. Other than that, it's a free-for-all. So watch out. That's why I recommend working hard to come up with good and sound principles that help us to live lives in accordance with our objectives, so that we don't wind up doing bad things. The home of good and evil is, I represent it as like on being under a bridge and writing these objectives and principles down in chalk above the bridge, or in the homunculus, in the cranium of the skull, the little man in there, in my case, and writing it down inside the skull. The reason that's important is that chalk, because it blows away in the wind, and trapped because there's no way out. Boy, this is a gloomy one this morning, just coming across. I think it's because I'm really anxious about tomorrow, really nervous about starting my new job. So it's kind of put a damper on everything. So, but that's, recognizing true limits and true opportunity. That's a limit. Limit is that I'm taking this new job very seriously. So as a result, I'm going to be anxious about starting it. So that's just something I have to bear. That's a new principle that I'm going to be starting. So I'm not yet ready to add it yet, but I will be. The concept of bearing difficult times. The next principle is the principle of the purpose. I have 3 purpose in my life. The first purpose is to, I call it biology, which is the mandate to recreate ourselves. My wife and I have created our daughter. She's grown. Task complete, nearly so. We still have to help her out and be there for her as her parents, and hope maybe someday grandparents. 2 is a principle of purpose. Of virtue. Virtue is to be a virtuous human being. And virtue isn't an abstract concept in this case. Virtue I define as the pursuit of objective well-being of thinking creatures. Next is the whatever mission I might have in my life. In my life, my mission now is to support my daughter and to also facilitate the message in going along. This very thing I'm doing right now. Okay, oops, sorry, I got an itch. The next principle is the atomic principle. It's simply the concept that life is made of, or everything in the universe is made of bits and pieces, atoms and molecules that are often in change. And so very soon this collection of atoms and molecules that's me, likewise you, will fall to pieces and be reused after we die. It's a sobering reminder that life is a life and us, we are ephemeral. Next is the principle of, after atomic principle, nature. The concept that everything has some particular nature, and that it's helpful to keep that in mind. Yesterday, I reminded myself at the end of the Good Life meditation that it's the nature of, and as I was getting ready to start off in the day, it's the nature of drivers here in the Inland Empire to be a little more aggressive than I remember drivers being in Orange County, and to remind myself that I would encounter those as I had made my trip to Lior's Moto Ride to have my bike's brakes serviced. And indeed, I encountered some aggressive drivers, and it's like I was forewarned, right? And as they began to do their aggressive thing, I just kind of made my way over to the one lane over and let them swoop right around. And it was amazing by being forewarned. I think I could have facilitated the same thing, but it might have taken another 10 or 15 seconds if I hadn't prepared myself in the morning to warn myself that was likely to happen. So it really is helpful to do that. Hold on, let me have a sip of my coffee. Thank you for waiting. Okay, after nature comes the principle of maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. Maturity is that state that we reach when we have experience and when we've learned from our experience, but it's only made really useful if we have the strength to not repeat the mistakes and the mindfulness to remember where our successes were and to try to repeat those, to carry on with those. So that's a state of maturity when we have wisdom and fortitude. Pardon me. Next is the, after wisdom or maturity comes the principle of the pirate ride. I think I skipped things. I think I was supposed to do the pirate ride one before. Oh well, I'm mixing things up a little bit. The pirate ride is the idea that we have no free will. I know that's a startling proposition. I mean, well, it's not a new proposition necessarily. It's an ongoing debate, but it's maybe a startling proposal that's what I believe. But I do. It's what I believe. Am I convinced? No. Am I trying to believe it? Yeah. I think it's like this thing. It's just like, this is where I'm just like a believer. A religious believer. I really, really want it to be. Well, it's maybe I even want it to be true. Maybe I'm letting the cat out of the bag. I want to believe because if I can believe that we have no free will, then my worldview makes more sense. The thing that I think I just slipped out that I didn't mean to, that surprised me, was that maybe that's what I want too. Because and for the same reason as the religious. Because if I can convince myself that we don't have free will, then I'm off the hook. Just like I think the religious, if they can believe that there's a deity that's looking out for them, then they're kind of off the hook too, right? I mean, we're still on the hook, but there's Big Brother watching out for things, right? In my case, it's not that there's a Big Brother, it's just that I'm nothing more than a domino following, and why worry about it? Interesting how I think I've uncovered my own bias. Yeah, but I take it as an article of faith. There's that word. Faith is a sin in my worldview. I'll get to that in just a minute. That we have no free will. Why? Just because. No, just because it seems to make sense. I just reason. Not even reason. Just want to examine the idea that, I mean, how could we be otherwise? I sound such a believer. How could it be otherwise, right? How could the universe just have come out of nothing, right? How could we just be here, right? All this be random. That's the kind of argument sometimes that you hear from the religious, and I'm saying the same thing. How could it be otherwise? That it's just clear that there are too many antecedent events that lead up to this moment right now, and the decision that I make to take a sip of coffee or to not is well outside of my control. It's laid in motion. It's decided by the previous events that have occurred since all the way back to the Big Bang. It's elegant. It just makes sense. So, and I will have a sip of coffee. But I hate it. I'm saddled with an article of faith. Next, after dog made a sound. Next, after the pirate ride usually after the pirate ride is wisdom, is maturity. I've already covered that. Then after that is the social principle, the idea that we're social animals, you and I. We can enjoy being alone, and it can seem safe and secure to be alone. But by gosh, that's a dangerous route to follow too far. It's better, I think, to have people in our lives. The next principle is the principle of public speaking. That is simply a suggestion to use the best words possible, to speak, to have temperance in our use of our speech, to be reserved with our words, to give some thought to what we're going to say, to speak well, to speak little, and to speak on topic. I'm just so impressed. I'm reading all about the life of Samuel Johnson, a very great speaker of the 18th century, and smell of an old book, and his model, his example. I would like to Even though I could never hear Dr. Johnson's voice because that's 250 years ago, I can hear it in my mind. I would like to be like that. What did someone say that had been with him when he was speaking? He may not have said anything new, but he sure said it very well. Yeah. Okay. After public speaking is the. I'm sorry. Oh, there's another part to it. Of a public speaking, and that is to always talk about other people, about as though they can hear what I'm saying, so that I won't gossip about them. Okay, the next two are kind of a twofer, right? So these next two principles, I deliberately put them at this point in the Good Life recitation, because this is kind of like reciting a poetry, or even a prayer, right? You know how you can do the rosary, right? You memorize it and just go down, or you can say Hail Marys or whatever. It sounds blasphemous to say this like a prayer, like I'm praying to my own philosophy, but you know what? You get the idea, right? After you do this enough, you can do it by rote memory. And I deliberately placed these next two in this order and at this place because it made sense. These are Temperance and then the Feast of Offal. Temperance being our controlled activities, controlling our whatever we do, controlling how much we eat or drink or work or play, laugh, anything at all, speak, whatever. And then the Feast of Offal is how when we get upset and we spread out our upset to the world, we share our upset, you spew it out. And if we can, the reason I put those together is that if you can, and we want to limit that, right? If we can temper our emotions, then we can control the output of our offal, our wasteful byproduct of our upset into the world. Basically being in more control, more stoic in our mannerisms, in our well-being. I mean our being. Temperance and the Feast of Offal. The next two also come as a pair. These are, I need more fingers. These are the distraction and the great agency and the great indifference. Distraction and agency and the great indifference. Agency and the great indifference is its own principle. Distraction is what we do to kind of keep ourselves from having to face the awful emptiness of the universe and the apparent absence of anything like God, because then we realize that we're all alone. So we distract ourselves through work, play, TV shows, gossip, whatever the case may be, so we don't have to see what I relate in my book, Going Alone, that emptiness out there. Okay, so we've just covered 4. Wow, in pretty short order. After the agency and the great indifference comes the best seat in the house, to remind myself to not want to be anyone else or be anything else or be doing anything else, but to be happy with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing. Did I say to be anything else? That's not what I meant. I don't want to be anyone else. No, I don't want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, be anything else. I want to be a gecko. So I don't want to, I would like to strive to be all right with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing in all cases, as tricky as that is. Boy, I'd almost need to be an Indian sage mystic to do that one, right? That's what Daruma did for the most part. The old middle way, right? The old founder of Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. Oh, the next one is the Path of Wildness. It's easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, the direction, a beast's track in the woods, and the direction of our first inclination. I fudged it. The Path of Wildness is simply the courageous marching forward into new and challenging life. And I would dare say I'm in the midst of it right now, right? Just having undergone the exercise of a new job, a new home, and new work situation, new working environment, the whole thing. I've just hit the reset button on life yet again, and man, is it hard. What do I hear? Next is the risk of avoiding risk. There are two layers of risks in life. The surface level risks are the, education, settling down, finding someone to spend your life with, a family, a home, a good job, retirement savings, etc. The deep level risk of life is doing something with your life that makes you feel like you've satisfied some inner want of creative expression, so that your bones just don't become anonymous. I like that concept of anonymous bones. I need a little notebook here where I can write down. I got to add that here. I've got one. Anonymous bones. Yeah, do you want to be anonymous bones? I don't want to be anonymous bones. I mean, it doesn't really matter. That's why I write my books. That's why I make these videos. It's kind of self-centered, isn't it? But oh well. I think we all want to be remembered in some way. So I'm going to convert that shelf up there, right there, to my personal shelf, the shelf that I've created in my life, the stuff that I made, right? And so that's that deep level risk, right? Is it not working to actualize that in any way? And then we end up old and facing death, realizing that we have a beautiful home, we have good savings, our time is our own, our children are grown, but something was missing. Some people don't feel that way, but for those that may, I recognize taking action on the deeper level risk of life literally before it's too late. It really becomes too late. There is a point at which you can't do it anymore. Or what you do is simply becomes less, or horror of horrors, irrelevant. Nobody gives a damn. The young, they reach a point where, or we reach a point where we are no longer relevant, whatever we have to say. Better act. Well, there's still some relevance there. Not that it really matters in the end, right? All that really matters is that, we tried to live a virtuous life. Oh, and if we're wrong, and there is a hell to follow after that, then at least we can roast, knowing that we tried our best, and that we were honest with our reason, right? All right. So after the risk of avoiding risk comes sin and damnation. That's one principle: sin and damnation, because we sin and then we're damned. Speaking of hell, hell I don't believe is anything in any afterworld, because I don't think there is any afterworld. Hell is in the here and now. It's when we fail to live a virtuous life, when we sin against our better nature, when our better knowing. And there are 7 sins in my worldview. And these are, first 6 of them are related to credulity, an over willingness to believe, and the last one relates to is kind of a socially related idea, sin. First 6 are hope, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority. So those are the 6, and then after that is gossip. Hope, because hope is an empty affectation. There's nothing to it. It's just clutching at pearls, and I wish it would happen. There's no energy. There's no motion forward. There's nothing to it. It's just more distraction. Credulity, because it's an overwillingness to believe. Faith, because faith is like hope, is similar. It's all filler. There's no nutrients there. Faith is simply believing something, cheating on the test, writing in an answer in the empty space and saying, I believe that's the answer because I believe that's the answer, without doing the hard work of actually demonstrating that it is the answer, just stating that it is. It's, as the Bible says, it's the evidence of things unseen. Superstition, because superstition is by its nature recognizes a category of propositions that are largely unfounded. They can't be demonstrated as true. dogma, which is truth supported by tradition and authority, because it's truth supported by the stern countenance of him or her that say so, and then gossip I already talked about. Sin and damnation. So now the next principle, two principles, and they kind of go together, are the great life adventure and then the season of philosophy. The great life adventure is the things that we do in life that constitute our marquee event. Whether it's, some great activity that we do in our youth, or some adventure that we have, or maybe it's something we do at work that is groundbreaking, something that we're really proud of, that becomes something that a part of our identity. That's the great life adventure. And you can have one or more of those. I really recommend for young people the decade of the 20s to give yourself to that. Go to school, go as far as you can with your education, and then have some adventures along the way. Go places, see things, do things, take risks, lose money, get hurt, bleed, whatever. And then when 30s roll around, then it's time that you can settle down, find someone to spend your life with, get started on your career in earnest, etc., etc. I think you'll be glad you did if you give yourself that in your 20s, when you have the time, the energy, and the resilience to bounce back. After the great life adventure comes the season of philosophy. That's simply the time that you record whatever you've learned along the way, whatever valuable things you found, or write it down, paint it, sing it, dance it, whatever the case may be, but do it. After that comes the Bullseye Aim, trying to hit the mark. A reminder that we try to hit the mark and we usually miss by some degree, but you get an A for effort. Then our arena and utility. Life is an arena for the effort that we do to try to live well, and our principles are the tools that we use along the way. And then the very last principle, principle number 27, is the idea that nothing is enough, that sometimes it's better to try to get by with less. Now, that was my Good Life meditation for today. Now I'm going to finish off by thinking about the day, what's to come, and how am I going to address this day? What challenges might I encounter, and how will I address it? Well, today's all about tomorrow. Tomorrow is my first day back at work. I'll actually be showing up at the place that I work, reporting for duty. And so what I need to do today, and like I said, I'm very anxious about today, I'm going to do the following. One, I'm going to clean the house top to bottom. I'm going to do that not because that has anything to do with my job. It just makes me feel really good to have the house really clean. Oh, and my wife is coming home today. It's her last day working in our old apartment. She had to stay there because she was still commuting. So coincidentally, tomorrow she'll begin working from home in new capacity as well. So it's a big day for both of us. So if I clean the house, then she comes home to a nice clean house as well, and that'll help make her feel better too. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange her workstation, because she'll be working from home tomorrow. So I've got some new equipment. I'll put that together, get her all set up. The third thing I'm going to do is look at my wardrobe and pick out what I'm going to wear tomorrow. I'll be working from home, but tomorrow I'll be going to work, so I'll have that in order. 4, I'm going to study some of the materials that I was sent by my new supervisor. I've studied most of it, but I want to review some of that content. And then 5, I'm going to take, if there's time, I'm going to take a motorcycle ride in the afternoon just to relax a little bit, and maybe go to Julian and get an apple pie or something like that in the afternoon. Julian's a community, nearby. Beautiful mountain ride on my motorcycle to get there, and I'll get an apple pie to bring home, so that my family and I can start this new way of life in earnest. What I might find along the way is that things might come up to foil any of these plans. Because I've got this set up in my mind. This is what I'm going to do. It's going to be a day in 5 acts, right? And things will come up that I won't be able to do that. And I need to contact the landlord about a few things too. So I'm just going to be ready that things might come up that might foil that. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready to have a day that does not match this plan. I'm ready to have a day that is a day. And with that, I will sign off, and I will wish you all the best. Remember, be safe out there, but not too safe. Take care.